New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello and welcome back to Global Focus Today. I am Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, your host, and today's guest is one of my favorite musicians of all time, Nimo Patel of Empty Hands Music. And you know how I like to tell you things about people that folks don't know. The cutest thing I know about Nimo Patel is that when he first heard Daniel Nahmod's CD Water, he listened to that CD and no other for a solid year. And then he improved it by getting together with Daniel and rewriting Planting Seeds, or re-recording Planting Seeds. So please help me welcome Nimo Patel of Empty Hands Music. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on with us.
Of course. Thank you, Shay, for your warm welcome and the fun factoid.
I have always collected pieces of information that nobody needed to know. It's sort of a hobby, you know. So I love what you do with the children and the dancing. I love to just go to your website and look. It always makes me smile. So tell us the name of your school and how it got started.
Yeah. So we're talking across the world, right? You're in America. I'm in India right now. Which I love, the technology and all that it provides us to connect globally. And so I've been out here for over 15 years. And I was pulled here because a show that I saw once in 2002 when I was living in New York City called The Unity. It was a show that this nonprofit organization called Manav Sadhana, which means devotion to humanity. They brought 14 children from the slums of the city that I live in here, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, to perform a show on Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s message of unity. And I was deeply moved. It was post 9/11. There was, obviously so many emotions running high at that time. And when I saw this message performed on stage through children, that was a deep seed planted in me that led me 5 years later to go volunteer there, to move to India for 6 months and volunteer with that same nonprofit. And I produced an album called Let Them Sing. And I, worked with 5 children from Manav Sadhana every day for about 4 months. And then we eventually went into the studio and recorded their voices and their stories and their photos. And then we released that album as a gift to the world. And that was the seed for me of this service journey that then 2 years later, I closed my business down. I quit my hip hop group. I mean, we closed our hip hop group down that we were performing and writing and, we had for 10 years at that time. And in 2010, on January 1st, I moved to this city with an intention to serve more out of an experiment. I thought, let me see what it felt like just to be in a space of service, learn what it means, see how that shifts who I am. And believe it or not, that 1 year volunteer gig has now turned into over 15 years and I haven't stopped.
And how many kids what's the mechanics of it? How does it work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the mechanics that I'll share are quite universal on planet Earth. When we talk about serving in the grassroots in super challenged communities, especially in developing countries, the mechanics is one, start with an intention to help a need that exists. And for us, it's going into communities that are deeply deprived. Typically, they're migrant communities, so communities of rural citizens, farmers that come to the city hoping to make an extra dollar, a rupee or dollar, or extra money, but because they don't have anything, they have to squat on land. Those squatted lands become what we see in Africa, we call them townships. In India, we call them slums. In South America, we call them favelas. But they're basically squatted on lands that are challenged in many ways. There's no sanitation systems. They're highly densely populated. Everybody's manual or daily wagers, manual laborers or daily wagers. So living literally off the money they make that day to survive. And so those communities specifically need a lot of support, whether it's health, nutrition, education at the core for us. So what we do is we end up just working with, if we see a community in need and we have the resources, then we just start. It's typically started where we sit with the chalkboard. One or two of our teachers would just sit with the chalkboard, and that would lead to children coming in. The main thing is to provide them a nutritious meal and love, and then little by little mentorship and guidance. And then what we've seen is that intention, that small intention, grows and blooms into somebody saying, hey, you can just teach in our house. You don't need to teach on the sidewalk or the street. And then that grows into, like, one day a donor will come by and or volunteer, and then they'll be inspired and they'll be like, hey, I want to raise funds for you guys to open a bigger center here. And then that would lead to what we have now, which is, we have 7 community centers where we work with 2,000 kids daily across the city, using holistic education, nutrition, health, arts, sports, livelihood projects. We work with women, almost 1,200 women daily across the city to empower and strengthen their lives. And it's been very organic, very needs-based. I've only been here for 15 years. The organization started 30 years ago. And so for me, it's been a journey in just humbling myself and really growing as a human being and receiving so many blessings and the opportunity to serve in this way. And so I don't ever, I don't think we take that angle that we're helping or solving any problem, but we're definitely blessed to build these relationships and be able to serve in our small ways.
So if somebody wanted to help you, they could go to emptyhands.com and make a donation, right?
Yeah, they could go to emptyhandsmusic.org.
Oh,
.org, yeah. Or our other NGO here, my sister NGO is manavsadhana.org. But I mean, yeah, you can find the information anywhere. But I would always say, I'm a big fan of saying the help, and I'm not trying to be cliche about it, but to me it's really important that helping is in the spirit. It's not in the funds or so it's like, how do we serve wherever we are is really the key. And that to me is, when people say, wait, so you guys are working with 2,000 kids, but there's so many issues and problems in the world, don't you need to scale it? What do you do? Like, how do you help more people? And I'm a big fan of Mother Teresa's quote, or at least she was quoted for this, but we may not all be able to do great things, but we can all for sure do small things with great love. And I think when we do that, when we work from that space, that intention, that clarity, and that selflessness, magic ripples out in its own ways. And it really, really helps, help spread the spirit more than trying to feed one more person. Like if there are more Sharris in the world, that's enough. We don't need to have another Sharri podcast. What we need to do is have another Sharri soul. And how do we cultivate more and more souls? So we have a volunteer project. We call it the Human Transformation Project. and we really nurture our volunteers here. So a lot of, there's a lot of NGOs and organizations that charge for a volunteer experience, whether you go to Africa or India or whatever. For us, it's kind of the opposite. Like, we really want to take care and feel blessed by our volunteers. And we have about maybe 100 or 200 volunteers that come from all over the world every year to spend 2 weeks with us, to spend 1 year with us, to spend 6 months with us. And really facilitating and nurturing that journey is really as important as the grassroots work that we do, because when that human being goes back to their hometown or home country, transformed and humbled and realizing the power of service, then the spirit of the work we do scales in that way. It goes back to Berlin, it goes back to Melbourne, it goes back to Burgos in Spain, or London, or Memphis, Tennessee, wherever our volunteers come from. And that is the magic. Once we start transforming hearts, that's the magic of the work.
That's the magic. And do you have return volunteers? Do you have serial
Yeah.
volunteers? I thought.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, like Zoe just came from Chicago. She was here for about 8 months. She had come in 2018. Josera is here from Spain. He actually brought a group of 12 other Spaniards so that they can also experience the kind of spirit of service that he experienced. And he was here for 2 years with us.
And if somebody wanted to do that, how would they go about it?
Oh, you can just, they can email you, and they can email me, or they can go to my website and, message me, or they can go to the manavsadhana.org website and go to the volunteer form. So all ways to connect.
All righty then. And so we honor and appreciate and just really celebrate your volunteerism and the work that you do. But I want to talk about music now.
Yeah, let's talk.
Because you do music that, well, some folks sing with their voices and you sing with yourself. How did you get started? Because you don't just do music, you do music with a message. And the message is always, it vibrates, it resonates.
Thank you, Sharri. Yeah, I mean, music has been such a big part of my life since high school, I would say. And I was really inspired by a musician named Tupac Shakur. And he was a pretty considered a gangster hip hop, West Coast gangster hip hop rap artist. But surprisingly enough, some of his messages are just so powerful. Like, he had this one song called Dear Mama, which was an ode to a mom who was unfortunately, she was drugged up. She went through so many challenges, but she still manifested to raise him in a way that gave him, the strength, the capacity to pursue a career in the arts. He's written songs on, on women empowerment. But then again, he's done all these other commercial and crazy songs also, which is very interesting. But he's a poet. He wrote a book called The Rose That Grew from Concrete. It was a book of all his poetry. But he inspired me when I was young because of how passionate he was about his poetry and how he wrote. And, so it wasn't always about the message, even though there were many powerful messages he had, but there was also bad ones that I didn't really align with. But because of the idea of writing and sharing and expressing, in high school, I started doing that. You won't believe it, but my first song that I made a music video to was about calculus.
I have a degree in math. I love calculus.
There you go. I was really good at math after our AP calculus test. My teacher, Mr. Kohik, he was like, guys, we have about 1.5 months of extra time. You should take it to do something creative with the subject. And my friend John and my friend John was like, dude, you should write a rap, because he knew I was writing poems and songs at the time. That you should write a rap and I'll help you shoot the video for it. And we shot a video for it. And I think it was this journey, Sharri, that of creating, sharing, and just realizing how it can touch people that inspired me to continue writing things that I connected to and that I believed in. And for the first, I would say, 10 years of my career, it was writing about my Indian American cultural heritage, right? Because I was born in America. I'm an American. My mom and dad were born in India, but they're immigrants. And when you're an immigrant in any country, you're balancing and juggling a variety of experiences, right? So a lot of my songs, and then when I formed a group, we were the first Indian hip hop group in the world at that time in 1998, Karmasi. And when we formed a group, a lot of our messages were geared towards that community. We wrote a song called Blood Brothers, which was aired on MTV in Asia, in India, in the UK, on BBC. And it was about the journey of an immigrant and, the American dream that we seek, but that the reality is that ultimately it's a journey of the heart. It's not a journey of material coming. So, and that was in two languages. We wrote that in our native tongue of our mother tongue, as well as our native tongue of English. So it was a very unique song. And then after about 10 years of that, when I moved to India, I decided to stop writing and to just focus on the service work that I was doing. And so we disbanded the group. And then after a few years of working with kids, and then as you had mentioned, I was introduced to Dan's music, the Water album. And listening to the Water album while working with my children, because I was producing and directing a musical that I was creating called Oneness. And in the process of working very deeply with 16 kids and hearing Dan's album, the Water album, I was deeply moved. It was speaking to my heart. Like, this is how I want to live. I want to live with full heart out on the sleeve, pour everything into it, but not want anything back for it. Like, try not to expect anything, just be all in with love. And as I was listening to that, it was deeply moving. And then eventually I took those 16 kids across the world on a world tour in 2012. And that's a whole other story, but when I got back, I decided that I did not want to do another big project, because that's all I've been doing all my life, was all these big projects that I attached my names to. And so I decided I'm going to just, like I always call it, wash dishes for a year, just do small things. And when in the middle of that 1 year break, towards the end of that 1 year, I had this itch to write music again.
I'm so glad.
And the first song was Planting Seeds, where I reached out to Dan and I asked Dan, could we do a remix or a retake to the original, contemporary folk song that you had created? And he's like, wow, like I've never thought of that or would know how to do it, but let's do it. And that began kind of this journey in writing music that came from my heart, not to try to be an artist or entertainer, but just to like speak what's in the heart. And from there, the response to the songs that I started to create enabled me to just, create an umbrella platform called Empty Hands Music, which has become my platform to share that music freely without charging and gift it to the world.
Well, one of the things I love about your music, hip hop in general, is that that it's dance. It's dance with words attached. Yeah. And that translates really well into the program that you did with the kids. I mean, it was phenomenal. It was just phenomenal. And there is a YouTube of that, isn't there? There's a way people can see that.
Yeah, well, there's like a trailer of the two different shows that I've done. One was in 2012, one was in 2019. So yeah, people can just get a little taste of the process and the journey.
They get a little taste, then they're going to show up at your door and say, "I want to follow you." And we're seeing
anybody is welcome.
Yeah.
What's that?
So yeah. I have these 5 questions that I ask all of my guests. Yep. The first one is there anything that you want our viewers to know that I haven't asked you about?
Ooh. No, I don't. I mean, I don't really. I'm not really here to spread a message of anything. But I think what I deeply believe in, to me, is all that I really care to share, which is like, how do we live from a space of being more kind and loving and understanding and tolerant. And I think, especially since we're talking to family in America right now, probably, um, as we move into these elections, to me, one, how do we practice our collective responsibility of democracy, of respecting, of one, acting and voting, and two, respecting and being tolerant of everybody's beliefs and not mocking one another. Um, and I remember after the 2016 as well as 2020 elections, after the 2016 elections, Dan and I redid the "We Shall Overcome" song, because I was just like really feeling the need to use that song and that concept, and Dan was totally on board, and it was just such a journey to create that song and the music video that Ellie, my dear sister, helped us create. After the 2020 elections, or for the 2020 elections, I wrote a song called "We the People," and that was dedicated to this idea that, um, if I can remember the chorus, is when we come together, then it's all right. Together we can make it through this fight. All I wanna say is that the good gon' come. Yeah. Don't ever let them tell you that there's two sides. Trying to figure out who's wrong and who's right. All I wanna say is that the good gon' come. All I wanna say is that the good gon' come. But the idea that, I know we feel like it's two sides. I know it feels so much like that. But how do we still agree to disagree? How do we still agree that we're different, but I still love you? Like, come on, even in our families, we're facing the dichotomies. So, but we still love each other. We, even though we kind of have those harsh bumps. So I think that practice is difficult. And to me, like you're asking, is there anything you want to share? And that's what I want to share, is like, how do we look inside and say, you know what? I know I totally disagree with this person is saying, but I'm gonna love them. There's a human being inside of that right there, and I know it's not the words I want to hear. So I think practicing that, to me, is big for our country right now, for the world. But I think that's one message that I want to share right now.
I think, Nemo, you just answered the second message, but I'm in question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I think you might expand it some. The second question is, how does what you do and how you do it, how you be Nemo, how does that support, enhance, encourage, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
I think it's a beautiful question. I think this is a question not for me, but for all of us, right? That how is our there's this. Well, so I'm based out of the Gandhi ashram, where Mahatma Gandhi was 100 years ago, and he, obviously he changed and elevated the consciousness of humanity. And he always says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That's what he's kind of quoted for, and I deeply agree, that the work is not externally. The work is internal. Everything that we do. The power that lies is in the being that we're cultivating, not the doing that we're executing. And so, but I've seen that magic over and over again, around me, around in my life, where it's like, if we're focused on our own cultivation, if we're focused on the small things, nurturing and kindling the relationships, the fabrics, not just having the sight on the big goals, that energy is palpable. People feel it. People, they know when there's an agenda and when something's pure. They and so I think, but how do we get to a space of that pure connection? I think that's where it takes effort for us. It's the inner work that we need to do to keep kind of anchoring ourselves to being more present, to connecting with small acts of love and small acts of kindness, to connect with other beings, to see the unseen. Like in India, especially here, we have so many people that go under the radar, whether it's on the streets or daily workers that, we have, 2 billion human beings living in a small location. It's a lot of invisible stuff going, but how do we see all that and acknowledge it and connect with love in that space? So to me, I think it's the importance of, like, even when I go to schools, for example, or have events, it's not about the stage show for me at all. I actually am not a big fan of it. Do it because it's a beautiful way to spread a positive energy and message. But to me, it's like those little connections. Like when I go to a school, I love just having interactions with each child and where, as much as I can, like sitting down and having a little conversation and seeing what they want to show me and see the drawing that they created. But I think not that the intention is that, but there's something that's created when we have that personal, deeper connection, and there's a feeling that shifts the energy field. And I'll give you a small example of Mahatma Gandhi because of the space that I've been in. Like exactly 100 years ago, he was at the ashram, the community space that he created, and it was, I think, 2 lieutenant colonels from Great Britain and 1 brigadier commander. I mean, they had a huge meeting, and this was an ongoing effort of the independence movement in India from Great Britain at that time. And so I think like 5 or 6 very, very high level, next to the Queen type of organizers had come to India, and they came to visit Gandhi because they knew that he was the most respected lead of the movement. And in the middle, so imagine, right, the president of America is coming to your home, like that type of energy, right? How do we respond? How do you deal with it? What are the formalities? Mahatma Gandhi was a very simple soul, and he just had a loincloth, and he was just being himself. He had no other agenda except for fight for what was true and real. In the middle of this meeting, because the ashram that he had as his home was a very humble space, and there were ashram residents, and that was adults and kids. And there were 12 vows that you had to live by in order to live there. So one girl in the middle of this political, what we would think of, and these days as like a very serious, high security meeting, in the middle of this, a girl comes and says, Bapu. Bapu means father of the nation. People always called him Bapu. So Bapu, one of the goats had hurt its leg. And this was just a little girl in the ashram that was living there. She just knows Gandhi as Bapu, as the caretaker of the overall ashram. So she comes there, and she's in the middle of the meeting. She's like, Bapu, one of the goats have hurt its leg. We need you quickly to help. And everybody's stunned that this girl would have the courage to even step in the middle or yell Gandhi's name in the middle of this important meeting. And exactly what unfolded is what's powerful, is that he apologizes to all the VIP politicians that were there. He says, if you don't mind joining me, I do need to attend to this goat because, one, it's hurting and we don't have anybody else that can take care of it right now. And the girl's very, very much concerned about it. And I want to show her that it's important that we care for her as well. And so they were deeply surprised. He goes back, takes like this turmeric and warm towel and salt and all this stuff, and he wraps it around the goat, and the girl's there. 2 of the members joined him. And then they know Gandhi's spirit, so they know that this is not something out of extraordinary. This is typical of him. Even when he came to London, he was dressed like a pauper with nothing. So they came, and then they came back, and that was it. And to this day, the story constantly is shared because of the power of when we're present to the small things, how that shifts the energy field and what the benchmarks that are set, right? So when you're talking about how do, let's say for my lens, how do I shift what's the work that I'm doing that shifts the consciousness? I don't know. I don't necessarily care in the sense of I'm not counting, but what I do know is I need to keep working on myself and keep loving. Um, and then whatever comes from that, I'm happy to allow for it to be. But I don't. I think to me the more important is the inner work, and the ripples of that are blessings, I guess. You know.
Oh, great answer. And now this is going to sound like the same question, but it's not. It's a little bit different.
It's
How
disguised.
Yes, it's disguised. There you go. How does what you do and how you do it and how you be Nimo Patel, how does all of that lead to, enhance, unveil, expose world peace?
You know, it's like the starfish story, right? It's like, who knows if it's gonna unveil or support, but I'm doing what I believe is in alignment with that, and that to me is more important. You know, when Jesus Christ was here, who I deeply revere and love, when Buddha was here, when Muhammad was here, uh, you know, all the great sages. I was just talking about Gandhi or Mother Teresa. Um, they've all come in and out, and many people would argue that the world is worse now than it was before. Okay, well then what was the impact of those human beings and those gods and those spiritual masters? I don't know if that really matters. I think what we need to do is just do our part, and just and align with those values and really try to practice them, and when I'm not elevated at that level, to keep working on myself, being aware to forgive myself and forgive others, and keep living it as aligned as possible that I can without letting my mind judge others whether they're doing that or not. And to me, then, so sorry if this answer seems similar to the last one,
Okay.
but if that contributes to world peace, if that contributes to a small part that might have a ripple that touches another's life and supports that, and I, you know, obviously I get to see, being more in a public space, sometimes I get to see the ripples of my work, and I get to receive messages and emails and communication from people to let me know that my efforts are touching lives in many different ways. But that, to me, it's like, it's a quick reconfirmation, or it's a quick kind of appreciation, but then I never hold on to that, and it really doesn't matter. It's like, I'm glad that person is healing or is feeling happy or feeling more peaceful, but it doesn't become like a treasure for me in that way. It's just like, gotta keep just keep moving on. There's this one quote that I really love. It says, before enlightenment, it's a quote by Buddha or some,
Yes,
I think
I love
Buddha.
it.
Before enlightenment, chopping wood and fetching water. After enlightenment, chopping wood and fetching water. And so to me, it's just that, chopping wood, fetching water. Just keep working on self, keep loving, keep serving, and then whenever it's time to go, it'll be time to go, and nothing to really be proud of or take with me. Just, this was the journey while I was here.
Oh, wow. What a great segue to the fourth question. Now, for this one, you need to close your eyes because you have to use your imagination. I know you're good at that. Presuming that everything goes exactly the way you want it to go, every detail, every event, every encounter, every relationship, every single thing goes exactly the way you want it to go. 10 years from now, what does Nimo Patel and Open Hands Music look like?
How many years from now?
10.
With all the intention of, you're saying, kind of everything going as wished, or, I mean, I love that. The last show that I directed with our kids, where we brought them to America and to the UK in 2019, right before COVID, the show was about 50 years from now, there was not a recorded act of violence. And the grandchildren that were in the show, that were talking to the grandmother, I mean, three of our kids that were acting, the show was a conversation between the grandmother and the grandchildren, explaining how we got here, because the kids were like, what is violence? I don't get it. Like, what do you mean there used to be violence? And the grandmother's like, oh yeah, there used to be a lot of different things. Let me share with you how we got here, right? So this idea of that type of planet where we would be in that space would be obviously where what my heart and mind is feeling like. That would be the ideal space. And then where would I be, or where would Empty Hands Music be at that juncture? It would be I guess it would be showing up in whatever way that nurtures and facilitates the spirit to continue in that way. For, it's not that we reach, like, it's like chopping wood and fetching water still. Like, it's not you reach there and it's going to stay there because now you can just do anything you want. It's a lot of work to then maintain a spirit of love and peace where there's no harm to one another, where our egos are constantly being checked. It's like, why don't teams win the Super Bowl 2 to 3 years in a row? Why aren't teams winning the World Series over and over again? Why is the same athlete winning gold medals over and over again? Because you could do it once, but it's not the easiest thing to maintain. Like, so to me, the gold medal of peace, or of a more sense of universal love on our planet, it's not a point where you reach and you're done. You have to maintain that spot. So I guess the goal of Empty Hands Music, or my own purpose, would continue to be the same, which is, how do we keep nurturing that fabric and make sure that fabric gets stronger and not taken for granted.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Okay, here's the last question. Will you come back?
Come back where? I'm here.
This again. Will you come again? My next opening is August 5th of next year. Can I pencil you in?
I'm in.
All righty. Okay. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome, dear.
Our guest for next week is Lanita Mitchell Blackwell, who is an intuitive business coach, which is an interesting kind of ministry. And I know you're not going to want to miss it. So we'll see you then. In the meantime, have a great week. Have a great weekend. And remember that I love you. Bye-bye.
Amazing. Amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like,